In the year 2020, the Vatican invited an explicit eugenist by the name of Jamie Metzel. Jamie Metzel is a eugenist. He embraces eugenics. And Jamie Metzel believes that through the process of embryo selection, we will better humanity.
Our one little species suddenly has the increasing ability to read, write, and hack the code of all of life, including our own. And it's this unbelievable power that for millennia we have attributed to our gods, the ability to change life, to change species, to build life from scratch, to confer something that feels like immortality. And it's an incredible godlike power, and we suddenly have it.
All right, everyone. So I want to talk to you guys about the Vatican and eugenics. The Vatican is not associated with eugenics at all, but I am here to expose this reality. So I want to talk to you guys about a famous Jesuit priest who also was a scholar. His name was Pierre Teilhard de Chardin. And Teilhard was a hardcore Darwinist who believed that we are evolving towards a point which he called the Omega point. And it will be, according to Teilhard, it will be a point in which mankind and the divine will converge together. They will come together as one. And at the center of evolution, at the center of the process of evolution, according to Teilhard, is Jesus Christ. And Teilhard called Jesus Christ the animator of evolution. Now, why is this so sinister? Why is this so evil? Well, it's because evolutionism is evil. Why is evolution evil? Why is Darwinism evil? Well, because Darwin taught that genocide is natural. That when one race exterminates another race, that was merely a part of the law of nature, and it was merely a part of mankind's struggle for survival. So therefore, when one race genocides another race, that is simply that race's demonstration of superiority over the race that it is exterminating. And the race that is being exterminated is merely exhibiting its own inferiority simply from the fact that it is being exterminated. So extermination, genocide, it's all part of the law of nature. It's all part of this violent, brutal, ruthless struggle for survival. Teilhard embraces this ideology, and he states that Jesus Christ is the animator of evolution. Therefore, according to Teilhard, Jesus Christ is the animator behind this violent struggle for survival in which inferior races are exterminated by superior races. And this is simply a part of the law of nature. So Teilhard was a hardcore Darwinist. And you could say, well, he believed in evolution, but he was also a Catholic, so he believed in God, and he believed in Christianity, and he believed in Christian morals. That is all deception. Because not only did Teilhard believe that evolution was real, but he also believed in eugenics. Yes, in eugenics. So here you have a Catholic priest believing in eugenics, and not only this, Teilhard believed that the Vatican needed to have a commission for eugenics for the betterment of mankind. So he believed that eugenics should be utilized for the betterment of mankind and therefore for the betterment of the human race. Now, what is eugenics? Eugenics, if you look at the etymology of that word, it simply means of good stock. Eugenics is the ideology of breeding human beings to be a certain way. I want to have a society where every human being is intelligent, physically strong, good-looking, sophisticated. I don't want human beings who are unsophisticated, who are stupid, uneducated, physically feeble and weak. I don't want those humans. So back in the mid-20th century, there was this obsession with eugenics, this obsession with breeding human beings to be a certain way. This is eugenics. So let's prevent certain people from having children, because if the stupid people are not allowed, and this is how they thought, I'm not saying that this is true or good or correct, I'm simply reflecting what these people said and believed. They believed that in order to prevent stupid people from living amongst us, then stupid people needed to be prevented from having children. This was the whole idea of eugenics. So we should encourage certain people to have children, and we should prevent certain people from having children by sterilizing them. And this is what was happening in the United States in the mid-20th century. And in the 1920s, the American Supreme Court constitutionalized forced sterilization for those who were deemed as unfit and inferior. And the state of California, not surprisingly, was the state that sterilized the most people in the United States. California, the state of California, sterilized thousands of American citizens. And this was held up as constitutional. This was not seen as violating one's constitutional rights. And so this was the obsession. And Teilhard was simply a part of this trend, a part of the zeitgeist of the mid-20th century. And in 1953, after World War II, so the ideology of eugenics was one of the things that led humanity into the evils of the Third Reich. Hitler believed that he could breed a perfect race, that Germany was being held back by Germans who had inferior genetics, so those Germans needed to be purged out of the gene pool. He only wanted the good, clean-cut, good-looking Germans to have children so that Germany could be a genetically pure society, and so that Germany could have a society with good genetic stock, hence the etymology of the word eugenics, of good stock. And so the Holocaust, Germany's policy of extermination, all of these evils that Germany committed were based on the ideology of eugenics. The Poles were inferior, the Jews were inferior, the blacks were inferior, all these people were inferior and were genetically holding back the German race. So you would think, okay, after World War II, people would have wised up. You would think that after World War II, people would say, okay, we believed in that nonsense, we were naive, we now see the rotten fruits of the ideology of Darwinism and eugenics, let's not repeat that evil. No, not for Teilhard. This was not the case for Teilhard, because in the 1950s he was pushing for eugenics. Even though he knew the evils of Nazism, even after the world saw the evils of Nazism and what eugenics led to, Teilhard did not care. That's how evil this guy was. And this is what Teilhard said in 1953. Why is it that in Rome, along with a biblical commission, there is no scientific commission charged with pointing out to authorities the points on which one can be sure humanity will take a stand tomorrow? Points, I repeat, such as 1. The question of eugenics aimed at the optimum rather than the maximum in reproductions, and joined to a gradual separation of sexuality from reproduction. And 2, the absolute right, which must, of course, be regulated in its timing and in its conditions to try everything right to the end, even in the matter of human biology. So he wanted to have a commission for eugenics in the Vatican. So I want to show you guys some things here, going back to evolutionism as this ideology of humanity being in this violent struggle for survival, and how within this paradigm there is this belief that war, extermination are all things that are part of nature, and lead to the betterment of the race, because through war and extermination, those with inferior genes are purged out of the gene pool, and thus is the process of evolution. So here is what Teilhard wrote. I'm reading this from this book. It's called The Invention of Prehistory by Stefanos Gerolanos. Very good read. Very good read. It is very educational. It's on the history of Darwinism and how Darwinism led to eugenics and to Nazism. And so here is a quote from Teilhard in which he talks about, and I'll read to you guys a quote from Gerolanos before he gives the quote from Teilhard. He says, hominization, which is the process of the pre-humans or the humanoid creatures like Neanderthals evolving into humans, Homo sapiens. So hominization involved a long list of qualities that Teilhard saw stretching from nature through humanity and always upward toward God. Quote, sexual attraction, so sexual selection, the inclination to struggle for survival. The inclination to struggle for survival. So he's using this terminology that comes from Darwinism, the struggle for survival. Well, what does that entail? What does the struggle for survival entail? War, killing, and therefore those with the fit genes, killing off those with the unfit genes, and thus natural selection, purging out the unfit so that the fit will procreate their genetic makeups to procreate their genes, thus accelerating the process of evolution. So this violent struggle for survival, which considers genocide and war as part of the natural condition of humanity, was embraced and taught by Teilhard. So therefore, according to Teilhard, the struggle for survival, war, killing, extermination, are all good things because they led to humanity reaching the point of evolution that it is in right now. Therefore, evolution doesn't stop, and war and genocide will continue to contribute to the betterment of the human race, because war and famine and genocide will remove the unfit. Now you'll say, well, how can you prove that Teilhard really believed that? Well, other than the fact that he believed in eugenics, Teilhard also glorified war. He was a veteran of World War I, and he glorified war. He wrote about his experiences in World War I. And it says here in the book, Teilhard described the terrible war as a step forward for human transformation. So war is good because it betters humanity. It helps push humanity into a new and better state. He proposed that the front line of World War I, that the front was not no man's land, but the front of the wave carrying the world of man towards its new destiny. You seem to feel that you're at the final boundary between what has already been achieved and what is struggling to emerge. So World War I was great. We should glorify World War I because it pushed humanity to evolve into a new state, to emerge into a new state, and emerging into this new state is a part of mankind's destiny. And this goes hand in hand with the Darwinistic belief that war is good because it purges out the weak and the fit remain in existence and procreate their genes, thus continuing on the process of evolutionism. And this is how people used to think. Before World War I, before World War II, during World War II, that's how a lot of these European elites thought. They saw war as great because through war, the weak are purged out and the strong move on. And the strong prove their fitness, their genetic fitness. And so through war, we get rid of the unfit and we better humanity. And so here he is embracing Darwinism, embracing eugenics, evolutionism, glorifying war. He had all the trappings of a Darwinist, because he was a Darwinist. And so it says here that in May 1918, 6 months before the war ended, Teilhard took his vows and retreated to the theologically innovative Jesuit seminary in Jersey, the English island off the coast of France. And during this time, he wrote prayers. He wrote prayers privately. And in one of the prayers, he worships nature. And he reveres and worships nature as the force of evolutionism. And so he says here in one of his prayers, "Blessed be you, mighty matter, irresistible march of evolution, reality ever newborn, you who, by constantly shattering our mental categories, force us to go ever further and further in our pursuit of truth." So, because he believed that we are continuously evolving. He didn't believe that the process of evolution stopped. He believed that evolutionism continued on, that we are still evolving, and that we are evolving to this point, which he called the Omega point. And in this Omega point, mankind will have this complete unification with the divine, and that Jesus Christ is the animator behind this force of evolutionism. So Jesus Christ, his Christ, it's a false Christ. His Christ was an evolutionist Jesus. But here is what I want to focus on, and that is that he believed that we are still evolving. And so what does evolution entail? Evolution entails what? Killing and death. And the reason why I say death is because we have natural disasters, disease, and then we have killing, mankind murdering itself, people killing each other in genocide, in war. Through killing and death, the unfit are purged out, and the fit prove their physical fitness. And they procreate their genes, and those good genes are passed on, and we evolve through this process. Teilhard embraced this process of killing and death. And he not only embraced it, but he glorified it. And so we, according to Teilhard, are reaching this Omega point through the process of evolution. Therefore, it's very satanic. We are moving towards this Omega point in which we will converge with the divine by killing each other, by purging out the unfit genes and procreating and perpetuating the fit and superior genes. And through this process of killing and death and war, we are moving towards Christ. It's pretty satanic stuff. So this evil individual, Teilhard, has been embraced by the Vatican. He was embraced by Popes John Paul II, Benedict, and the current Pope. Now you'll say, well, they're the popes, right? They know what they're talking about. They're appointed by God. Teilhard's teachings were rejected by Pope Pius XII. Pope Pius XII rejected the teachings of Teilhard as heresy. And in 1950, Pope Pius XII denounced Teilhard in his encyclical Humani Generis, in which he said, quote, "Some imprudently and indiscreetly hold that evolution, which has not been fully proven, even in the domain of natural sciences, explains the origin of all things, and they audaciously support a monistic, pantheistic opinion that the world is in continual evolution." So Teilhard was teaching that we are continuously evolving and that we are evolving towards this merging between matter and divinity. And this is why he brings up pantheism. And so we are evolving. We are continuously existing in this process of evolution, which means that we should embrace the very glorification of killing that Teilhard had when he was glorifying World War I, because it is through killing that we evolve. So Pius XII rejected and combated the teachings of Teilhard as an evil heresy, but the Vatican now embraces Teilhard. And this book says, and today the Vatican has reappropriated Teilhard. Popes John Paul II and Benedict XVI presented his consecration of the world as per Benedict. Quote, This is what Benedict said. The great vision of Teilhard de Chardin. In the end, we shall achieve a true cosmic liturgy where the cosmos becomes a living host of consciousness, the divine, whatever. Benedict had been a supporter of Teilhard's since his earliest days as priest and theologian. The trend towards acceptance, if not fervent embrace, has continued under Pope Francis I. So the Vatican now embraces this eugenist. Now, you'll say, well, Ted, this is all just coincidental, or maybe the popes don't know. Oh, they know. They're educated people. They know what they're doing. Just a simple perusing of Teilhard's work will show you that he embraced evolutionism, which means that he embraced the ideology that glorifies war, death, and killing. And what does the Bible say? Satan was a murderer from the beginning. What does it say in the book of Proverbs? All those who hate me, God, love death. And evolutionism is an ideology that embraces and glorifies death. It's like Santa Muerte. It's a scientific version of the Santa Muerte cult. It embraces death. Now fast forward to the 2020s. In the year 2020, the Vatican invited an explicit eugenist by the name of Jamie Metzel. Jamie Metzel is a eugenist. He embraces eugenics. And Jamie Metzel believes that through the process of embryo selection, meaning breeding human beings in a lab and then deciding which embryo is worthy of being born and which embryo is worthy of being thrown into the trash, through this process of embryo selection, we will better humanity. This is eugenics, right? By definition, this is eugenics.
All of life shares genetic code. It tells a different story, but it's made of the same building blocks of the A's and C's and T's and G's. And the essence of this genetics revolution, which builds on 150 years of scientific advance, is that all of a sudden our little species, this one little group of monkeys essentially who climbed down from the trees and stood up to peer over the grass, our one little species suddenly has the increasing ability to read, write, and hack the code of all of life, including our own. And it's this unbelievable power that for millennia we have attributed to our gods, the ability to change life, to change species, to build life from scratch, to confer something that feels like immortality. And it's an incredible godlike power. And we suddenly have it.
And Jamie Metzel embraces this ideology, and he inculcates and advances this ideology, and he will advance this ideology on the Joe Rogan show. But he will also advance this ideology through the Vatican. And the Vatican invited Jamie Metzel to speak at a Vatican conference in the year 2020. And not only this, but the Vatican invited Jamie Metzel to write an essay for the Vatican. And if you look at this essay, Jamie Metzel explicitly endorses embryo selection for the genetic betterment of humanity. Eugenics. And you could say, well, maybe this is just a one-time thing. No. In 2021, the Vatican invited Jamie Metzel, so the Vatican is embracing eugenics. And the Vatican works very incrementally. It's like how the Vatican decided to condemn the death penalty. You know, you can go back to John Paul II, and John Paul II condemned the death penalty. He did not condemn the death penalty in the official Catholic dogma, but he did condemn the death penalty nonetheless. And then later on, you had Pope Francis, and Pope Francis said, okay, we are now going to officially condemn the death penalty. And that's why Francis went on to the catechism, and he added to the catechism that the death penalty does not have anything to do with Christianity, and that the death penalty is antithetical to Christianity. So it's a slow process. Same thing with homosexuality. The Vatican will say, well, you know, homosexual lust is not or homosexual desire or attraction is not a sin. Well, yes, it is a sin. Well, no, it's not really a sin. It's only a sin if you act on it. And so this is how the Vatican has gradually been embracing Sodom. I mean, it has already embraced Sodom, but it is gradually boiling the frog, if you will. It is incrementally teaching the ideology of Sodom. And then not too long ago, Pope Francis comes out and says, yeah, we should have same-sex civil union, so secular gay marriage. And then the Vatican will say, well, we're going to accept homosexuals into the seminary. And so the devil works in increments. The devil does not work in just terms of days, weeks, months, or years, but the devil really, really works in terms of decades, centuries even. It's incremental steps. So John Paul II came out and said, evolutionism is true. He was the first pope to embrace evolutionism, which means he was the first pope to begin the process of the Vatican accepting Darwinism and pushing the ideology of Darwinism, which is the glorification of death, as a means by which to genetically better mankind. And then you have Benedict accepting Teilhard, you have Pope Francis accepting Teilhard, and now you have the Vatican embracing Jamie Metzel, who is an open eugenist, who believes that we can be like God by breeding humanity. So there you have it. Another rotten fruit that's coming from the tree of the Vatican. Anyway, you guys just heard some theology. God bless.